The surprise resignations inside the British government have already opened a new chapter in the country's much-debated struggle to leave the European Union. In fact, what triggered the high-profile resignations was the last Friday cabinet deal over Brexit, Britain's exiting the EU. Many believe the deal represents a far softer vision of Brexit than what Prime Minister Theresa May had promised to pursue. And they say May's failure to live up to her promise to seek a hard exit from the EU could eventually set the stage for a rebellion by her own Conservative Party.
Theresa May is at the weakest position she's ever been. She's never been a strong Prime Minister. She was never elected. Her only opponent in the leadership election, Andrea Leadsom, fell on her sword during the contest. So nobody stood against her, so she got in on a bye. She was never positively elected by anybody to be the leader of the Conservative Party or Prime Minister. So she's always from the start been weak.
Many believe Prime Minister Theresa May is already fighting a battle for her political survival over her Brexit strategy. This will specifically become evident when she presents the strategy to the Parliament for approval. The Labour Party has already advocated a soft Brexit, what May's strategy is now all about, but there is no guarantee that Labour would support the Premier when it could capitalize on her internal chaos and leapfrog into power.
The people like Boris Johnson are actually more in the pocket of the establishment than she is. So even though she's supposed to be in charge as Prime Minister, she's actually lower down the food chain than they are. So that's how British politics works. There's an establishment which is in parallel, should we say, with the government, and the establishment decide what happens. And there are various people working their way up the political tree. And Theresa May is, in a way, a kind of token Prime Minister.
The British cabinet resignations came at a terrible time. They came as the government is preparing for the next stage of Brexit talks with Brussels. To Europe, Prime Minister May is facing growing distrust inside her own party over leaving the EU. And whether a deal with London over this could eventually be sealed may be as unlikely as before.
The idea here is that we need to have some deal with the European Union. The European Union are quite happy to walk away with no deal and leave Britain completely punished. But if Britain gets what it wants, that is to say what the people voted for, its sovereignty back and its control over its borders back, the European Union in Brussels is going to make Britain pay for that. And they're doing everything in their power, which is actually quite a lot, to just to muddy the waters and to make the negotiators waste their time on trying to get deals they can't get. But what the proof will be in the pudding. If Theresa May actually does get a deal, which enables Britain to keep its sovereignty, to keep complete control over its borders and its own courts just making decisions, then I think Theresa May might just survive all this. And actually, that might not be such a bad thing, that people like Jacob Rees-Mogg and the hard Brexiteer faction and Boris Johnson might actually have to come crawling back to her and say, well, maybe you were right to read.
Prime Minister May has now reached out to Europe and says her proposal on Brexit needs to be supported or Britain would crash out of the Union without a deal. This may appear a warning from London that the fate of talks with Brussels already hangs in the balance. But to the same degree, it shows May's desperation that many believe has resulted from a deteriorating political chaos at home over such an important matter as leaving the European Union.